Good morning everyone, good afternoon and good evening as well. Today is Tuesday. Today we have just gotten the patch 9.2.7, also known as Season 4 in Shadowlands for NA players. Tomorrow we are getting the release of the patch for EU. Before we properly get into this season, I wanted to talk about something that I left on the side for a few days because I was expecting perhaps an answer from Blizzard. Perhaps there was the chance that Blizzard was going to rectify the situation, but I'm going to assume this is how things are going to stay, which is what is going to prompt this video. The issue in question is this thing right here, also known as Jiggersworth Senior, the other cat of Kel'Thuzad. This time is not a pet, it's a mount. So the drama around this mount is that it was revealed that this mount was going to be awarded from normal difficulty raids. We have talked in this channel a few times when we talked about the rewards of Season 4, pointing out that the rewards somewhat felt upside down when it came to the raid. You were getting the portals to the 3 raids if you were completing the 3 raids in Mythic, and then you were getting the title if you were completing it in Heroic, and then you were getting a cool brand new mount if you were completing this in Normal. So it felt like somehow the hardest difficulty was getting the worst reward. But the drama around this mount is a different one. The drama around this mount is that it's not going to be available in LFR. It's only going to be available in normal difficulty. So this has spawned a whole list of complaints, a whole list of, I guess, debates around the availability of this mount. People claiming that this was the only reason they were going to play Season 4, that once again elitists have won, and once again Blizzard is catering to the 1%, etc, 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 because this mount won't be available for the easiest, the lowest entry-level barrier difficulty in the raid, in LFR. So before we start about this drama, let me just point out to all of you that I have no stakes in this race. I am not biased whatsoever, since I will be getting this mount regardless, and number 2, I won't be using this mount regardless. I only use mounts that are rare. So I only use mounts that take either effort or some repeated attempts or perhaps straight up luck to obtain, but not freebies. Whenever there was a WoW anniversary mount or some celebration of some event mount that everyone gets, I never use the mounts, even if they're cool, even if they're nice. So I have no interest in not wanting this mount to be available to players just from LFR, because I don't care about this mount. With this being said, I have to admit that I guess the dialogue, the communication from Blizzard's end has been quite poor when it comes to this mount. It has made things a little bit blurry and confusing for players to understand where exactly this mount was going to be awarded from, because there isn't really much of a doubt, much of a question where you get the title Hero of Fate, which is going to be available in Season 4, when you read the achievement. The achievement says Heroic Fates of the Shadowlands raids, complete all 3 fated raids on Heroic difficulty, or the Mythic version is Mythic Fates of the Shadowlands raids, and you have to complete all 3 fated raids in Mythic difficulty. So there is really no question about these 2 achievements. Obviously, if you want the title Izen Hero of Fate, you have to complete the raids in Heroic, and if you want your 3 useless garbage teleports, you have to complete the 3 raids in Mythic. That's obvious. The more confusing part is the one about the normal raid, because you read the achievement and it says Fates of the Shadowlands raids. Complete all 3 fated raids in Shadowlands. So, there is no mention about the raid itself being normal difficulty. There is also no mention of it being in any difficulty. In fact, there is no mention of difficulty at all. And if we go back to the history of this mount, the first time this mount was data mined was at the end of March. We saw the icon of the mount and we saw the texture, the supposed texture of the mount that was being put in the encrypted patch build. So that was the first time. A month later, in April, it said at the time the exact same thing. It said complete all 3 fated raids in Shadowlands Season 4, and we still knew nothing about the difficulty itself. People automatically assumed it was just going to be normal Heroic Mythic, and that is probably where we started having this divide of the player base. Likely some part of the player base simply assumed it was going to be for normal raiding, because, they see 3 achievements for the raid. One is for mythic, one is for heroic, so what's the third one gonna be? Of course it's gonna be for normal, while the other part probably just assumed it was going to be for any difficulty. One is for mythic because mythic is hard, one is for heroic because heroic is not as hard but still difficult, and then the last one is either for normal or LFR. That's why there is no difficulty put into the achievement itself. So that is why perhaps once the news came out that this achievement was going to be for the normal difficulty and not for the LFR, some players got disappointed or frustrated, let's just put it that way. Why I am also calling out the lack of communication from Blizzard is that when you go and look at the achievement itself, the Fates of the Shadowlands raid, it is comprised of 3 different achievements, 3 different meta achievements. One is the Fate of Natria to defeat all of the Cast of Natria bosses, one is the meta achievement for defeating the bosses of Sepulchre, and one is for the ones of Sanctum. If you look at these achievements though, they specifically tell you that you have to defeat the following bosses on any difficulty. So while the meta achievement itself doesn't make any mention of which difficulty is required and people might assume it's for normal difficulty, all the 3 meta achievements for all the 3 raids specifically point out that you can defeat the bosses of the raids in any difficulty. Normal difficulty is not required for the achievement. That's why I think it mostly comes down to a problem in communication, in dialogue with the community from Blizzard's end. As you know, if you are in-game right now, try to go in your achievement tab, you will realize quickly that there is no mention in-game to the LFR difficulty. There is no mention in-game to looking for raid difficulty whatsoever. It is never written. These 3 words next to each other are never written in any achievement in the game. Why? Because if it is something that includes LFR, it specifically says in any difficulty, or it doesn't mention the difficulty whatsoever. If something requires mythic, the achievement will say in mythic difficulty, same for heroic, and if it is also completable in normal, it will say in normal difficulty or higher. LFR itself is never mentioned, so even if you were to read just at first glance an achievement like this one, you could assume it's for all difficulties because there is no difficulty specified in here. I was still quite surprised, of course, by the amount of complaints that were born from this news that the achievement for this cat mount was going to come only from normal difficulty, mostly because, you know, normal difficulty is quite simple, because even though you have 3 different raids, so technically you don't have to defeat just 10 bosses, you have to defeat like, how many? 30? 29? For all three raids combined, so it is also way more bosses you have to go through. But in the end, I still think it can still be considered just a normal, no pun intended, just a normal achievement that you have to, a normal raid achievement to go through. One for mythic, one for heroic, and one for normal raiding seems quite standard, even if LFR difficulty is not involved. I don't remember. One with a longer or more precise memory might correct me in the comments, but I don't remember any raid achievements that were earnable, so to speak, in LFR, besides the default defeat these bosses in these wings. That's been basically the only achievement you can earn when it comes to raiding in LFR. Same goes for rewards. As far as I can remember, the only rewards available in LFR have been from mount drops from certain bosses. For example, Gmod, the mount from Mechatork in BFA, in Battle of the Zaralor. Other type of mounts droppable from certain bosses have been able to drop from LFR, but that was it. Any other type of raid achievement, be it a title or be it a specific mount coming from a raid achievement, that were always coming from normal difficulty or higher, never from LFR. So I myself, even when I read these titles for the first time, and I do remember this because I did make the video about this the first time they were data mined, I automatically assumed this achievement was going to be from normal difficulty, because that's how the achievements have been split in raiding in WoW for quite a long time. You have the achievements for mythic raiding, the achievements for heroic raiding, and then you have things like Glory of the Raider type of achievements, which can be completed in normal as well. So when I saw this type of achievement for the first time, I assumed it was normal minimum to receive this mount, but apparently it has made quite some people angry, the notion that it won't come from LFR. After all, in case you have forgotten, since Season 4 is coming out now, LFR won't be staggered in different wings, so the entirety of the LFR raid will be available on day 1 to complete. So you can enter today in NA, tomorrow in EU, you can enter LFR Castonatria and complete all of LFR Castonatria in one go. As I said, personally, I don't care who gets this mount. I don't care to gatekeep anyone to get this mount because I want to be using it myself, but I still think I think it is normal and expected to have this type of achievement, this type of meta achievement reward from raiding coming from normal difficulty. I don't see it as something weird. I have heard one of the main types of complaint about this is the fact that essentially Blizzard has lied to the player base because, you know, this achievement was data mined, there was no mention of the difficulty, so players made plans ahead of time, players knew that doing LFR might have given this reward, and then, you know, 3 days, 4 days before the patch actually comes live, we get to know that this reward only comes from normal raiding, and therefore if you don't plan to participate in normal raiding, you won't be able to get this mount. That is why also I delayed the video by a few days, because I was expecting at the very least a type of answer from Blizzard regarding this issue, this, I guess, community created issue. So I'm going to assume that Blizzard is not going to change the manner in which you can earn this mount, and this mount will remain as part of your normal raiding achievement for Season 4. And that is mostly why I wanted to make the video right before Season 4 launches, to learn about your point of view related to this mount. Whether or not you think it's okay that this one only comes from normal raiding, whether or not you would have wanted it from LFR, whether or not you feel like you were entitled. I've also heard this type of point from many people. Many people have tried to frame this mount as an end of expansion reward, a culmination of an expansion's sort of free reward given to Blizzard to all players. That's another point people have been making, so I want to see on which side of this, where do you sit on this debate related to this mount, especially from players who have no stakes in it, just to see from an outside perspective, not biased by whether or not you simply want the mount, but you're just seeing this from the outside, from something that doesn't concern you. Where are you sitting in this debate about this cat mount? So this was my point for today about this play cat mount. I'm gonna be reading your points in the comments about this community created debate, so to speak, about this reward from Season 4. With this drama out of the way, I can leave you to the rest of your Tuesday. Of course, once again, a round of applause and a thank you to my patrons for supporting me. That is very much appreciated in these very busy times for the game. It's gonna be nice to know that I have your support as I continue to produce and deliver content to you on YouTube. One day eventually, especially when I'm out of the No Alpha Club prison, we can start streaming a little bit more of the content from the alpha and later on from the beta. But for now, this is what we have to make do with. Also, of course, to further support the channel, you can like and comment down below, as well as subscribe to the channel itself. And for further imaginary friend behavior, I am available to be followed on Twitter, as well as subscribing to my Patreon down at these two links. With all of this being said and done, thank you guys again, see you guys soon, and in the meantime, it feels nice to start August without having this much of a hot summer season, although it's kind of spooky. It's all too quiet. There must be some heat wave around the corner that I'm not aware of that is gonna hit us in the face, and I'm gonna regret these words then.